last 3 seasons have dropped from his previous 5 seasons, specifically QBR, as well as yards per game and touchdowns. In his 36 interceptions was the most since the 2022 MVP season. They're tied for the 3rd most over the last 3 seasons as a whole. Here's Chris Canty on his concerns for Mahomes and the Chiefs.
It's just a matter of whether or not the Chiefs have put enough in place around him where we can see Mahomes get back to being one of the most productive quarterbacks in the National Football League. Because if you look at the trajectory the last 3 years, there's been this steady decline. Even though the Chiefs have gone to Super Bowls during that span, we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes play up to the level that we're accustomed to. And so now this is the season where Patrick Mahomes has to prove me right and prove everybody wrong that wants to be the first to the party to predict the Chiefs' demise.
All right. Sometimes we have a little bit of recency bias. I know that. And winning cures all. I know that, too. Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, not in the playoffs last year. They only had 6 wins. And now we're starting to nitpick a little bit before the season starts. Is it fair to say what Canty just said, that Mahomes has declined as we say hello to Peter Schrager?
Hello.
Schrags, what do you think?
I respect Chris's opinion, obviously. I think it's Patrick Mahomes has to prove nothing to anyone. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a set-made man. There's a lot of guys, I would say Josh Allen, Lamar, Burrow, guys who haven't hoisted a Lombardi that do have something to prove if they want to be in that conversation. Mahomes is a Mount Rushmore guy. So I don't think he has to prove anything to anyone anywhere. Has his play declined? His stats have declined. His numbers have gone down. He's had to be that player, though. The seasons that he had in 18 and 19 and 17 where he was throwing 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, that was fantasy football. That was Tecmo Bowl. It was crazy. The league caught up to a lot of things they're doing, and just by their success and the way that they were winning and ascending, their star players that were around him all were picked off by other teams and plucked, and offensive coordinators left, and offensive linemen were signed for big money, and Tyreek Hill was traded. So I think it's nearly impossible to ask for someone to do what he did those first few years over the course of a 10-year span. That said, you find me someone else on this table, not me, who's going to question Patrick Mahomes, and I'm certainly not going to say his play has declined. If there's one guy in the league that I will not be taking for granted, or not be the one to say is going to be overlooked, it's this guy. He is a killer. He is a grim reaper, and if you continue to doubt him, I think he's going to take some souls this season.
Go ahead, Hawk.
Yeah, I'm with Schrager. I think Patrick Mahomes is in a world all of his own. And I think even when you look at the quote-unquote decline of his numbers, it doesn't give it proper context. When you make the amount of money Patrick Mahomes does and you have the level of success, things around you are going to start to look different. Your offensive line, your receiver weapons. Also, to your point, I don't think it's overstated enough the difference in offensive coordinator between Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy. I know we like to trick ourselves into believing that Eric Bieniemy isn't anything and it didn't matter and that's why he's not a head coach. But the reality is when you look at his numbers, Patrick Mahomes had almost 1,000 more yards per season, 13 more touchdowns, less interceptions, and a better completion percentage every year that he was with Bieniemy versus when he's not, because that also contributes to the run game. He had Tyreek Hill early. He had a much younger and electrifying Travis Kelce. All these things matter. And I actually think with Bieniemy back in the lineup, you got Kenneth Walker in there now. I think Rashee Rice takes a step as a number 1. Xavier Worthy takes a step. They have Tyquan Thornton deep and still Travis Kelce, Noah Gray. I think we see a version of Patrick Mahomes that we haven't seen probably in the last 3 or 4 years.
But the only problem with that, like, their division is much better, too. Like, this is back in the day, it was like the Chiefs are bust, this division. Everyone's gotten a little bit better as they're slowly starting to decline. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jay.
because I would look at the other 2 teams. You can argue that starting the season, you have them above them in their division. I think everything you guys said is true about Mahomes in a sense of there's been other variables that have contributed to the decline of his numbers. They haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Tyreek Hill left. The amount of times he's throwing the ball down the field has changed. He had the most career rushing yards a season ago because he felt like he had to at times because the offensive line has broken down in front of him. But to Canty's point, like, he absolutely has a lot to prove because this is a quarterback that we hold to such a high standard. Does that mean he's not going to be a Hall of Famer? No, this guy is already there. He could be on Mount Rushmore. But the saying that I had an old coach, Greg Williams, always used to say, for players, when you're tired of competing and proving yourself, it's time to retire. So the fact that this Chiefs team only won 6 games a year ago, didn't make the playoffs, and you're looking at those numbers, Patrick Mahomes, I think for himself, is saying, I got to prove everybody wrong again. I have to prove it to myself that I'm still that dude. Do we all know he is? Have we seen plays throughout the course of this said decline where he still looks like that exact Patrick Mahomes? Do I want to line up against him now?
No.
Hell no. He is still that guy, but still you have to improve it every single year. So coming off of a major knee injury, coming off a 6-win season, and coming off of not winning the playoffs, you better believe he has a lot to prove.
Prove what, though? Proves the word that
the Chiefs are still relevant and they're still a team that is contending for a Super Bowl.
Brady went 10 years between Super Bowl titles. Were we doing this every offseason that Brady has to prove something, or because he had 3 in his back pocket at the time that we were like, he's good? I just feel like the question is, has he declined? Potentially. He's older. Numbers. That's fine. And the stats have gone down. The indication that he has to prove something to anyone is what I don't prove to who.
But Brady during those 10 years, and help my memory here, like how many times did he miss the playoffs? Wasn't one of those seasons they like had 11 wins or 10 wins and missed the playoffs?
No,
like,
yeah,
I feel like
hurt that year.
Right, and he was banged up. Like he didn't get hurt till the end of the season. I think last year the team as a whole didn't. What were they? 1-9 in one-score games. Like that was never the DNA of the Kansas City Chiefs. They won those kinds of games. So it's just been a different thing that we've been seeing over the last calendar year. Would you agree with that?
Sure. And I think last year was everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. They had offensive line issues from day one. They had a player that they were expecting to be their star wide receiver go down with an injury three plays into the game. And I can list all these excuses and look like a Chiefs homer. I'm not. I just, to me, it's Mahomes is up here. And all due respect to Allen and Lamar and Burrow and Herbert and Jalen Hurts, they're in a different conversation. And Hurts has won a Super Bowl. I still think Mahomes is put in that different conversation.
No question. Like, as far as, like, historically, when it's all said and done, how we're going to talk about Mahomes, yes. But I think there's another part of this where we look at Mahomes and we want to compare him to Brady because we think Mahomes is that good. We call the Chiefs a dynasty. So when we look at that, like, we're saying, can they prove to us they are who we think they are in regards to one of those teams we're going to talk about on a historic run where we say Mahomes had the first iteration of his dynasty? Yes, there may be a layoff. How many years is that? To Shay's point, it took Brady 8 years to win another one, but he was still competing, still looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm not questioning that. I believe Mahomes is still that. But you got to go out and do it every year.
That's fascinating because the 70s was the Steelers, the 80s was the Niners, the 90s was the Cowboys, and then you had the Patriots. And then to me, it's like, then it was the Chiefs. But to your point, Brady did have those 2 chapters.
Yes.
And Michael Jordan had those 2 chapters.
Yes. Yeah.
Mahomes, does he have the second chapter?
Yes.
And even in this decline, he's in the Super Bowl. He's winning. I remember when that year he won the Super Bowl, we talked all year about how bad the receivers were, and he still went and won the Super Bowl. So if you're doing what Patrick Mahomes is doing in this 3-year decline, yes, I don't think you have anything to prove.
We have like a stat for Patrick Mahomes, like for Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar, like what's their stats against Patrick Mahomes? That's how we grade quarterbacks. Okay, time for a quick take. We go to the diamond for this one. Tarek Skubal made his Dodger Stadium debut last night, and it wasn't as dominant as the Dodger faithful maybe would have hoped. Skubal pitched just 5 innings. He threw 95 pitches to record the game's first 15 outs, all while still struggling